Last time we were looking at a little bit of SQL and some databases. We're going to continue on that today. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why I can't make this bigger here. But oh well, that's fine. This over here is your tables. Okay, so what I've done is I've double-clicked the orders. You can create a new table by going to Create and choosing Table, and we'll actually look at that. To modify an existing table, if you got it open, you just right-click on the tab here, and you can go into Design View. That'll take you over to here, and that's where you can edit various items about your table. Okay, I'm going to create a new table just so we see it. So click Create, and I'll create a table. Now you notice there's other options here. If you want to go dive straight into the design, you can go here. Those are probably the only two that really matter for what we're looking at. Let me go to the design since I don't think I showed that. See how it goes and asks us for the field names. And so, for example, if I was going to keep track of a log capability, then maybe I'd have a log ID, and I'll put an underscore in between them. Short text might be fine, but I'll say it's a number. Line integer should be fine. Come down here, log date, and do the drop down here. I did a tab to go to that field, and you see there's a date time option here. Now there's different ways you can have it appear, like there's an input mask down here and format and so forth. And then I'll say description. And short text is actually 255 characters, which is pretty good. So I'll leave it alone. Now we'll click the save. It'll ask us the table name. So I'll say log file. And click OK. We want a primary key. Do you want to create a primary key now? I'll say no. Now to go over to enter data, then you can right click on the log file here, and you see there's datasheet view. And so I can put log ID here, date 3/30/2019, ran successfully. Log ID 2, 3/31/2019. The computer run failed. 3/4/01/2019 ran successfully. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click save.
Success. You spelled successfully the first time with one L.
Oh, did I? Make that bigger. Yeah, sure enough, didn't I? Let's see, I'm going to make that. Probably still would have spelled it wrong, but I'm not trying to make that bigger. Okay, so now I got two tables, orders and log file. Now, the project I just put out there will be for you to create your own table. And it'll be based upon a YouTube video. I don't, in the YouTube video, they do not show you how to create the table. But from what I've shown you here, you should have no trouble with that. Now I'm going to close that. Yeah, go ahead and save changes. Save changes. Okay. Now over here, I've created an application already. This accesses the orders table that we created last time. If I double click the button here, maybe. There it goes. It goes into the code here. Now up at the top, we need a using statement using system.data.oledb. This brings in all the different code that you need, all the different methods and so forth. Now up here, and this is after the partial class form 1 form, then this private OLE database connection equals new OLE database connection. Now, this is already defined. This is what we can access by bringing in that these libraries up here. Private, so we just said so we access it from within here. And then here's connection, and that's a name I give it. You can call it whatever you want. Equals new, and then OLE database connection. Now what this is objects class. So this is creating an instance. So this is going to be our connection. So that we'll have our program here, we'll have our database here, and we'll create a connection to the database. That's all that is. Now down here in our public form 1, notice the name here, form 1, matches the name here. You did not have to worry about that. That does that for you automatically. But what this public form 1 here is that's our constructor. So that's gonna when that's called automatically, that'll create an instance. So initialize component was already there. I didn't change that. And here I put connection.connection string. The connection you see here refers to the connection up here. And a connection string tells me how do I talk to the database. Now on the page for the week, I put a link here that says connection strings. If you click that, it opens up a new page. This is a pretty cool website. Not sure all that it does actually. But specifically, there's this part over here that says connect to. And that tells us what our connection string should be. For example, if I'm connecting to Access like I am, if I click here, it brings in this, and this is what I would use for standard security. So I would edit copy this. After I got it highlighted, you can right click on it and choose copy. Then you come in here and you paste this in. So that right there. Let me go ahead and do it just to show you brand new. Now I have to have the at here. That means take the string as is. If I scroll over, it's got the name of my database contained within it. So right there. Well, the one I'm saved is under TMP. File open. Sales.accdb. So this is one I'm working with. So sales. Now press delete. So sales.accdb. Now I expect I can't have this open here, so I'm going to do a file close. Close that up. Now this just sets up the connection string. So that tells me how to connect the two together. Could be if you have a different version of OLEDB on the computer, you'd need to update this. But this worked fine for where we're going with. Okay, so we're defined the connection up above. We set the connection string, saying how we're going to talk about it or talk to it. Again, there's lots of different ones here. If you are wanting to talk to Excel, which I never have done, but I think maybe we'll try it. I think that'd be kind of a neat thing. But this tells you how to connect them. If you were talking to MySQL, that's a popular one in Linux. Here's what the form of it should be. So you'd add to copy this and add to paste it in, and so on. Okay, then when you're actually ready to use it, this is one from the tutorial that you watch. To use a database, you have to open the connection and you have to close the connection. So always when you put your open, go ahead and put your close. Important that you put that in there. Now this one, I created a label called check connection, LB_check connection. And on this code, I just basically changed it to say connection successful if you connect and everything looks good. Now I got a try here, and we looked at the try catch, if you remember. What this means is it'll try to connect to it, but if for some reason it can't, then it'll pop up here with an error. That's what the catch, exception, and the EX does. Now if I run that, comes down here and tells me connection successful. By the way, this is just one way to access a database. We're going to look at a couple other ways. Excuse me. This changes to sales 2, which shouldn't exist. Now if I run that, it gives us this error message saying could not find the file. That is what occurs when it tries to set up this connection and fails. It comes down here and then prints the entire exception. Does that make sense on what that does?
It shows you the error and then the error code, yes?
Okay. And I just put this in the Form 1 load. Nothing exciting. This is just demonstrating how do you connect to a database. Now, after it does the close, it's no longer connected. So it can't do any queries against it or anything. Each time you do a query in a different part of your code, you want to do the connection.open and connection.close. Well, I added a button on here, button 1, and I wanted this to look up an order number. So if I double click button 1, now I got my try again here, and down here is the same catch statement. You can use that on every bit of this code. I open the connection, and then I close the connection. So again, when you put the open, automatically put the close, and then put all your code in between. I don't know what OLE stands for. I think it was object linking and embedding, but let me look. Object linking and embedding. So it's their technology allows you to take this application and in this case attach it to a database. And I don't know if I can view anything here. This is ODBC, which is a little bit different. That's gone off to Never Never Land. There it goes. I didn't expect actually to be anything there. Might just be the one that comes as default for the drivers. So I don't think I'm using SQL Server. Okay, but there's just different ways to set up that connection. It's basically what to remember. Now this creates an OLE database command. In this case, we're going to fire off an SQL statement that's a select. So it's going to return data. I call it command. You can call it whatever you want. That's whatever your name is. And then I got a new OLE database command. Again, this is creating an instance of it. Now I say command, which is this one right here, that OLE database command, dot connection equals connection. This lowercase connection here is referring to this connection where we did the open. So that's what's making that connection. The open establishes communication between the database and the application, and then we're creating a command, and with that command, we need to tie it to that connection we just created. So that's what that's doing. Now from here, we're going to build a select statement. These are a little bit tricky. This is a select star from orders where order number is equal to W0123. And I'm going to open a file. I'm not going to open the one I'm going to be working with because it'll probably cause errors. I'm going to create a query. And I'll go into query design. Orders, add that. If I just right click on it, I can go straight to SQL view. Select star from orders. And run that. We get this. Right click on that, go back to SQL view. Where, and this is what I'm trying to create here, where order number is equal to W0123. Then I run that. Then like something. That's interesting.
You have an apostrophe before the W instead of quotation marks.
There should be apostrophe. So I actually got screwed up here at the end. There we go. Okay, so returns our data. If I right click on that and then choose SQL view, this is the SQL we're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's beneficial to copy that in and try to work with that. For example, if I want to copy that, I highlight it, right click on it, choose copy. And right here, where I do my command text, this is where I want to put that in at. Now we start a string by putting a double quote, and we close it with a double quote. And now if I paste that, Control V, it puts that in there. Now this would be fine as is. It's hard coded, but it will work fine, except for I don't have a semicolon here. We'll come back and revisit this, how we can change it. In the login, they have something more complex, and I'll change it to be something more complex so we see how to build it. Because that's kind of the tricky part, is getting this string just right. And sometimes you want to, maybe you want to do a message box and show it before you actually run it. For example, come down here, I can type message box, and assuming that's a string, I can do command text. And displays a window. Contain text. Cannot be used like a method. O.show. That will show what my SQL looks like. So that's kind of useful to do. If it doesn't show it, if it puts extra information in it, then we could declare a string and assign it to a string, and then the string you could assign to command text. But either way, we want to see the SQL. Now this, OLE database data reader. This is referring to that we're going to read data from the database. Specifically, we're going to issue an SQL command. We're not going to issue an update or insert or delete. So we're not updating the query at all. We're just going out there and going to read it. This is whatever name you want to call it. I call it mine reader. Equals command. Remember, command is what we reference right up here. That was our LE database command. And then I do a .execute reader. That's a basically issue the SQL command. So I'll do the select. Now here I got a count, and while reader dot read, if I run this, got an SQL, run it, it returns one line. You might say, well, what about this line? Isn't that there? And no, that's a, not sure why they put that there. I suppose if you just want to add new data is why that's there. So it returns one line. I could get rid of that. And now it returns 2 lines. So this while loop is necessary because you don't know how many lines you're going to return with your SQL statement. Now in our case, if it's a 1-to-1, that's like where we're going here and we should get 1 record. Versus if we start here at our input form and gets multiple records, that'd be considered like a 1-to-many. That's typically referenced in terms of from a table to a table, but the same principle holds true here. So this is going to loop through all of our records that are returned. And based upon that, you see that I got tb_customer_number.text equals reader. Well, first off, this is a text box. Notice the TB underscore in front of it. Reader matches the reader that I defined up here, my OLE database data reader. The customer number, including the underscore, corresponds with customer underscore number. So it's what we called our field over in Access. And order, we called it order underscore number. And that's why this one's order.
Instead of dragging it out, you can double click and it auto fits, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like Excel.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I need to get better familiar with Access. I haven't worked with Access forever. There it goes. Okay, so then this is retrieving customer number and order number and putting them into these text boxes. Now I do a count here just to keep track of it, because if you do have an issue where it's going to return 2 records or 5 or 100, you should be aware of that. And this code where you're only putting in as one record really only works when you got one record being returned. This prints the count just so we can see it, and then does close. Okay, so if I run this, I changed my database field name back. Connection string. There we go. If I click the button here, this is showing me my SQL statement. Select star from orders where order number is equal to single quote W0123 in single quote. And I click OK. And it gets the record and fills in the information in the blank here. I really wonder if I can have it open. Let me go ahead and, I bet I can since I'm just doing it for reading only. I guess this is the one. Don't save changes to it. No. And we're going through orders. Now, instead of hard coding this in here, we want to have it come in from a text box. But first off, let's separate these. This single quote has to be here. This single quote has to be here. So what I'm going to do is after this first single quote, I'm going to put a double quote in that string. And then I'll do a plus for concatenation. And I'm just going to hard code it temporarily here. I'll put quotes around W0123 plus, and I'll put a double quote there. It seems kind of strange, but this double quote is ending my beginning double quote right here. So that's one string. And then plus is a concatenation, and I'm tacking it onto here, plus, and then I'm concatenating this. So tacking the two together. And notice that all that's inside of this one is a single quote. But if we run this, we have to have those single quotes there. And you see it still looks good. Over here, select star from orders. Where work order, is it work order? Or order number. Equals W00123. Now if I run that, there we go. Syntax error in string and query expression. What's missing is a single quote at the end. So that's why you have to be careful when you're building this initially, that you make sure you got your single quotes around strings. They don't have to be around anything except for strings. Now, instead of hard coding this, I'm going to bring that in from a text box. So I need to create a text box. So this is going to be my search string. So I need to call it TB underscore like search string. So give it a name, TB underscore search string. Now when I click the button, I'm going to want to get that value. So I'll say string search string. And I'll say search string is equal TB underscore search string dot text. Now, instead of hard coding this in with W0123, I'm going to actually type search string in here. And notice it's still got the single quotes around it. So now if I run it, if I put in W0123 and click button 1, there's my SQL and it looks perfect. Got single quotes around that. Click OK, returns that. Only found one record. Now if I run this, my other one is W0124. So if I come here and I put in W0124 and click button 1, it shows you this. And I probably don't need that anymore. After you see it 2 or 3 times, you probably got a comfort level down saying, yeah, it looks good SQL-wise. Then click OK, returns 1 record, and I see it puts the values here. And then click OK. Is there any questions on that code so far?
No.
Now, let's say I want to change this to bring in something additional. Maybe I want to bring in city. Well, then what I would do is I'd have to have some place to put it on my form. So I'm going to lasso select those, rectangular select, bring them down. And bring in a text box. Label. And this is going to say city. And I'll call this TB underscore and city. So now if I go back to my code, now I'm still doing an asterisk, so that's bringing everything in. You don't have to do an asterisk here. You could just bring in only the information you want. But down here, I'm going to say TB underscore city dot text is equal reader city dot toString. We'll look at a number here in a minute. And that should all be all that's necessary for bringing in additional field from your record. So if I come down here, I type in W0123 and click button 1. Famous last words. Oh, what did I do? Put that on the label? Wellington. Let's try that again. Sure enough. I'll rename that to label underscore city. This one should actually be the TB underscore city. Okay, so to a W0123, then click button 1. Again, shows that I need to take that off, I suppose. That's bizarre. Did I still screw it up? Obviously. Label. Oh, when I renamed it here, I renamed it in my code. Either that or I'm just really slipping and came here and put LB and didn't even notice it. I'm drooling on myself pretty soon, sitting on a park bench. Okay, bring that in. It says Wellington there now, so that's good. Let's check to make sure that brings in like Mulvane for the second one. And How do I post my changes here? I suppose just save. And click there, just be on the safe side. Okay. Now, let's search for it. And see how it updated that to Mulvane. Notice I did not have to exit out. That's the idea of a database, is you have multiple people using it, and I can sit there and make changes over here, and they're automatically updated over here. So sometimes you have to worry about how do you handle it if a record's locked and so forth. And that's why you don't want in your application, you don't want to open up your connection, leave it open for your entire program, because that potentially could lock out somebody else. That's what, open it up, do whatever you want, and then close it. Any questions on that part?
No.
Okay. Well, let's change this a little bit. Let's write a little bit of code to bring in all the work orders or numbers that are out there, and then we're going to talk about some error checking to handle it if there is no record. What do you do? Because I really want to demonstrate what that while loop does. Okay, so I'm going to have a list box. I'll put it over here. And I'm going to have a button here. And when you click this button, it's going to bring in all the work orders that are out in the table. So let me change the text on that. Load work. I keep referring them as work orders. Can't seem to break myself with that. They're sales orders. I'd say load orders since I can't get myself to stop. Oh, enter. There you go. So load orders. So we double click load orders. Now we're going to need to have a try here. And this is where we're going to open our connection. So we'll do our connection dot open, and we immediately put the close in there. Down here, we're going to put our catch and exception EX and message box dot show error. By the way, I don't know why he chose in his video to do this. There's a shortened version of this where you can do an ex.message. And this gets a message that describes a current exception. And it's not as lengthy as what we have been seeing. This is just kind of your standard. When I worked at IFR, there was a way in that package such that if you did like a control F3 or something, it would paste a bunch of code in there for you. And so I had this programmed in for databases. Every time you work with databases, you always had kind of like a set pattern needed to be in there. And so then whenever I did that key combination, whatever it was, it would paste all that in there for me. That's different than doing an edit copy and edit paste, because this was a macro where it embedded that code in. You could have different ones. So I'd have a list of ones I could do to shorten my programming. Now at this point, we're going to build this same concept here. So we need a command. Maybe I'll just copy it. I'm going to copy it all down to there. Control C. And come down here. And I'll paste that in. Control V. Again, this creates our connection's open, and this creates a new instance of our OLE database command. This makes a connection between the command here and our connection. So the command I'm talking about is one right here, and the connection is one we just opened. And then I want to select star from orders, but this time I want to get rid of everything except for that. So this will return everything. And then I'll close the connection. Okay, so that's going to fire off the SQL statement. So now, down here, we need our while loop. We don't need all of it, but I'm going to go ahead and just copy it just to start out with. Okay, Control V. I got to execute the reader too. I forgot that line. Okay, again, opening the connection, creating a new database command, connecting the database command to the connection, building our SQL statement, firing off our execute statement, looping through the results. So that's what we're doing right here. Well, now I got a list box, but I didn't give it a name, unfortunately. So let me go back to Form 1. This list box here, I'll call LBox order numbers. So LBox order numbers. Okay, let's go back to our code. And I'm going to say LBox order numbers dot items dot add, and then I'm going to add in reader, and I'm not sure if it's double quote or single quote. Let's see, double quote, and order number. So order number. Okay, so this is going to loop through each record in that's returned off that SQL statement. Same as if I issued this SQL statement over an Access, this has to loop through all the records it returns. And doesn't do anything exciting except for just takes that order number field, whatever's in it, and adds it to my list box. Now let's run this and see if I'm even close. I click my load here and see it loads them in. If I was over here and customer 2, Frank Hayes, address 200 Main, he lives in I try to pick the hardest name I can think of to spell. Let me choose something a little bit easier. Kalispell, Montana. 6787. So I put that there. If I commit it, commit is the proper word to save your database changes. Probably if I just click the save button here, that's my commit. So if you ever hear the word commit, that's what we're referring to. Now if I click load, it does this. Now see a problem. It loaded it okay, but it also loaded the previous entries again. And if I keep clicking load, it'll keep loading them. That does not mean it's doubling the database, because all our SQL is doing is a query. That means in my code, I need to clear out the list box. So up here, before I start loading it, I'm going to say lbox order numbers dot, is it clear? No. Dot items dot clear. Click load, see it does that. Now I'm real curious the order here. That's not the order I see it on my screen here. Must just be how it's stored in the database. I mean, it's definitely, this is returning this one first, this one second, this one third. There's different ways around that. If you remember some of our SQL, let's see. Order by customer. That ain't kind of memory. Order by order number. Now, see, it's sorted. In my case, it didn't make any difference because this is already sorted by that. But if I go back to that now, I just need to put on order by order number. So select star from orders, order by order number. Now if I run that, click load, and you see we get this. Now there is a property on a list box. See if I can find it. That's down here is sorted. That allows you to sort it. Part of it, when you do it with SQL, though, you can have it go by different arrangements. I don't think that's capable here. I think if you mark this as true, it just says ascending. But if I remember right, if I do here, do descending, then it sorts them, but from largest to smallest. And again, pretty much anything you can put into SQL here, you can put in your program. So let's see over here. I can put descending in, like that. Now you can combine these together. This is going a little bit further than I was going to go, but you can combine these together where you have this come in. It brings in all your orders. If you click one of these and maybe click a load button, it loads in that sales order. So let's drop on a button, although you could double click this too and program that. Okay, so this is going to get whichever one selected here. So that'll be that's a tricky part right there. So click that. Now pretty much the code here is going to be the same as this button right here. So if I look at button 1, I can just copy and paste it in here, and it's going to be almost 95% of it's the same. Okay, so button 1 is right here. I'm going to copy this code. down to button 3. Paste that in. First thing I need to do is I need to retrieve, instead of search string, I'm going to get it from the list box. So let's see how to do that. Search string equals to lbox order number dot items selected items. Get a collection containing the currently selected items in list box. I'm going to do an int selected index. Selected index equals to lbox dot item selected item. What's that return? Gets or sets the currently selected item in the list box. That almost implies I can get it directly via there. Well, let's try that. Doesn't like something. Can I convert it to an integer? Okay. Search string. Like I said, I wasn't kidding when I said this would be the hard part. I'd have to probably Google it myself if I don't fumble upon it. Okay, so open my connection. Create a new database command. Connect the database command to my connection. Build my SQL statement. So I'm going to select from orders where order number is equal to search string. I don't have to change anything there. That's perfect. Then I'll show this. I'll leave that there temporarily because I'm not sure of my code yet. Create a reader and run the SQL. And so this is going to have all my records in there. Count is equal to 0. I'll leave that there. While reader, so it loops through. And I want to load in the information. So yeah, that should all be, I'll get rid of this count here at the end. Once you get used to database work, let's see if my search string is correct though. Okay, so load in those. I'll click one of these like 24, click load. Select star from orders where order number is equal to W0124. That sure looks good. Click OK, loads it in. If I click this one and click load, yeah, that looks good. It loads it in. Once you get used to the database language, the database mechanism, then it's pretty easy to work with databases. And it's dynamic. I don't have to fool with files. Files are tedious. They really are. I mean, C# has made it a little bit easier with the stream, concept with the stream reader and stream writer, but it's still, I think, kind of tedious. Databases provide a very slick way to access your data. Now, one thing else I wanted to show here, I left this blank. Now let me click button 1 here, and it's returning that 0 records were chose, but yet I didn't clear this. So that's a problem. 0 records being chose means it did not find this work order. Remember, this is our search button to put in our work order number. Our order number. That returns one record, and then loads that in. Put 4 in there, again, builds SQL, 1 record, changes that. But again, if you have this, returns 0, it's like, what do you want to do? You got 2 options. you can either leave these blank and don't do anything, and then the user sitting there scratching their head, wondering, well, why didn't I find anything? Or you could have these blank and pop up with a message box. That's kind of your choice from a design standpoint. Pretty much when you start programming, you'll know, because if you put the wrong one and you get a lot of calls from the users calling you, hey, I fired off a work order. I know it's a valid one, and it came back with nothing. It just didn't do anything. And then you look in the database and you see, okay, there is no order number with that number. And so you tell them that, and they say, oh, I'm sure I had an input. And then all of a sudden, 15, 20 minutes have been wasted for that phone call. Versus you just doing a message box saying, hey, the record's not found. So let's put that in there. Okay. So that was back to button 1. It does make sense to name buttons so you know what in the world in your code this is referring to. It's like button 1. What in the world is that? You don't see me do it a lot. But if you're going to put code behind it and your code gets too complex, you'll find that's useful. Like up here, maybe I'd use button search for single order. Oh, that's disappointing. Didn't rename that. What if it even still works? Yeah. Well, it's probably a good idea to name it before you do your code then. I could clean it up, but it's not worth the effort on that. Okay. So to begin with, since I'm going to be returning and filling in these 3 text boxes, let's blank out those text boxes. Now, since I'm going to do that from multiple locations, I could put that into its own method here. Clear text boxes. Public, I can call it from anywhere. Void means nothing's returned. I had no reason why it has a squiggly there, but TB underscore must declare a body. TB underscore customer number dot text equals blank. Oh, semicolon. I think I'd never programmed before. This is one way to text clear out a text box, like that. Another way is clear. Either one's fine. And our last one is city dot clear. It'll take me a while. It'll take me 20 years to get used to this clear command. This is how we used to have to do it originally when the first Visual Basic came out, so I can't break myself with that. Okay, so now down here I'm going to call that. And this is clear text boxes. And I'm also going to call that down here in button 3. Clear text boxes. Shouldn't need it in button 3 because button 3 is a lot more locked down, but it's not locked down completely. For example, if I come here and I click this load button right here, well, it's got some issues because I haven't selected anything. So there's more error checking we need to put in to get that to work. Okay. Now if I click load, loads in my data. Again, if I don't choose anything here, it should cause me issues again. It should blow up. But if I choose something, click load, load that in. Down here, if I type in something, David's order, and click button, it's blank now. And that's the way we want it to work. But we still don't got our message box telling us that it didn't find the record. So let's take a look at that. Go back up to button 1. I've just searched through here. And I set count equal to 0. This is how many records it found. And then I'm increasing it by 1 here to keep track of how many records. So down here I can do an if statement. If count is equal to 0, means no records were found. And I'll say message box dot show no record found. And I'll get rid of this. Now I'm going to copy this and paste it down below. Although in theory, it shouldn't have that issue. Okay, so count is equal to 0. I'm increasing count by 1. Down here, no record found. So now if I run this, build errors. That's nice. The name count does not exist. I'm going to move this and put it inside my my try. Reason why I said it didn't exist is because I declared it inside my try. So I can't have it outside of that try. It doesn't exist out of there. Okay, so let's run that. Again, if I click load here, choose one of these, click load here, brings that in. If I type in a valid one down here, should still work. Click that, there's my SQL, loads that in. If I put an invalid one in, see, it comes back and says no record found. So that would be something that the user could see and say, oh, no record found. What in the world does that mean? Hey, David, it says no record found. What does that mean? No record found. So that may not be appropriate description there. It could be you want to say no sales order found with that number. So then they know. They still might call you saying, I'm sure I put that in. But the good users will actually go look it up then. They'll see, okay, let me look up my sales orders and see what I have. And they'll say, yeah, sure enough, it doesn't exist. A lot of times you don't like the people to type it in freehand here. You'd rather have it as a list. But sometimes you want it to be freehand. Like we looked at the like in our SQL. Select from orders. And for the city, so we do a city. Right click on that, choose SQL view. Where city is like, and then %E%. I think % was the correct wildcard. And now if I run that, obviously don't know what I'm doing. Was it %? How bizarre. No memory. SQL-like. The percent indicates 0, 1, or multiple records. Customer like or city like. So Maria, contact name, where contact name like Maria. Percent. So that should get this first one, definitely. So we got everything that starts with where city, like. Case shouldn't matter. Um, well, that's the one got me bested. I would just naturally start blaming Microsoft, but I'm still wondering if I'm doing something wrong. Let's see, where order number is like my search string, and then I'll put a percent here. Except for I put that in the wrong one. I put that in 3. Let me go back to 1. From orders where order number is like and my search string percent. So if I put a W down here, where order number like W percent, it works. I would guess that it's just a weird thing in Access. The idea is that SQL is standard. But some packages have come up with their own flavor of SQL, thinking they know better and they don't want to be standard the same as everybody else. And I'm guessing that's what is going on with this. Though I'm really surprised that it actually worked in Visual Studio. I would have thought it would have went with the convention of Access. But this could be where you need to know how to do that. Maybe this is how you have to do a like statement in Access. So it takes a little bit of playing sometimes, especially when you go into different database systems. Now, I went ahead and put the project out there. If I can find it. Maybe I closed it. There it is. It says complete the login program defined under, and if I go to this this page, it says tutorials 1 through 5. When you get here, you'll see over here on the right-hand side, there's a Access database tutorial, getting started, and Access database connection. Create a login form with Microsoft Access, password protection, add pictures and icons, and how to open a second form using the first form. So these tutorials 1 through 5 here all go together. And you see they got a name on them, Microsoft Access Database Tutorial. Really not going to be a whole lot new at first that you're going to see in this and what we've already showed today in class. Opening a second form from a first form, that'll be new. So if you have trouble with that, then just let me know. Don't forget there won't be class on Wednesday. I'll be bringing my son home from the hospital then. He's having surgery tomorrow. So go out and watch those tutorials. I don't think you have any trouble in combination with what I just showed you. Is there any questions on any of that?
No.
Okay. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.